Outsmarting anyone is not about being louder, crueler, or more aggressive. It is about control, first of yourself, then of the situation. True dominance never announces itself. It is quiet, observant, patient. Most people lose before the game even starts because they react emotionally, reveal too much, and chase approval. If you want real leverage in any room, any conversation, any confrontation, you must operate from discipline, awareness, and restraint. The first rule is emotional control. The person who controls their emotions controls the outcome. When someone provokes you, pressures you, or tries to intimidate you, they are testing one thing: can they move you? The moment you show anger, defensiveness, or desperation, you hand them power. Calm is not weakness. Calm is dominance. When your face stays neutral and your voice stays steady, the other person begins to doubt their own position. They start filling the silence with mistakes. Emotional restraint makes people uncomfortable because they cannot read you, and what they cannot read, they cannot control. The second rule is to listen more than you speak. Most people talk themselves into losing positions. They overshare, explain, justify, and seek validation. Silence, when used correctly, is a weapon. When you let someone talk, they reveal their intentions, their insecurities, their strategies. They tell you what they value and what they fear. You gain intelligence without giving any away. Every unnecessary word you speak is a potential weakness. Speak only when it adds weight. When you finally do speak, be precise. People respect clarity and brevity because it signals confidence and certainty. The third rule is to understand leverage. Power is not evenly distributed. It comes from options. The person who needs less has more control. If you need approval, you can be manipulated. If you need the deal, you can be pressured. If you need the relationship more than the other person, you will compromise your standards. Build a life where you have alternatives. When you walk into a situation knowing you can leave, your posture changes, your decisions sharpen, and others sense it. You don't threaten to walk away. You simply know you can, and that knowledge shapes every interaction. The fourth rule is strategic patience. Impulsive people are predictable. They rush to respond, rush to win, rush to prove themselves. Dominant individuals let situations unfold. They observe patterns, wait for timing, and strike only when the advantage is clear. Patience frustrates manipulators because it denies them momentum. While others are emotionally invested in immediate outcomes, you stay focused on long-term positioning. You don't need to win every moment. You only need to win the decisive one. The fifth rule is to set boundaries without explanation. You do not owe everyone access, energy, or justification. When you explain too much, you invite negotiation. Clear boundaries stated calmly and enforced consistently create respect. You do not argue your standards, you live by them. People test boundaries to see if you mean what you say. The first time you let something slide that violates your principles, you teach them how to treat you. Dominance is not aggression, it is consistency. Understand this clearly. Outsmarting others starts with mastering yourself. Your habits, your discipline, your ability to delay gratification, your willingness to walk alone if necessary. When you are grounded, you don't chase validation, you don't engage in pointless conflict, and you don't need to prove superiority. Others feel it. They adjust their behavior around you because your presence communicates strength without force. In conversations, stay grounded in facts, not emotion. Ask questions that make others think instead of statements that invite resistance. Let them underestimate you. Let them assume control while you quietly assess. The most effective people are rarely the most visible. They move with intention, not ego. Dominance is also about integrity. When your words and actions align, people trust your signals. You become predictable in the best way, calm, firm, reliable. That predictability makes you formidable because it removes chaos from your behavior while others remain ruled by impulse. Remember, manipulation burns bridges, but mastery builds authority. You are not trying to crush people, you are positioning yourself so you cannot be crushed. When pressure comes, you don't fold. When chaos rises, you stay centered. When others react, you respond. The person who wins is not the one who talks the most, threatens the loudest, or intimidates the hardest. It is the one who sees clearly, moves deliberately, and never gives away control of their inner state. That is how you outsmart anyone. That is total dominance. Control over any situation begins and ends with control over yourself. Emotional discipline is the foundation of dominance because emotions are the fastest way to lose power. The moment you allow anger, frustration, fear, or excitement to dictate your behavior, you become predictable. Predictability is weakness. Most people believe emotional expression is honesty or strength, but in reality it is exposure. When others can read your reactions, they can manipulate your decisions. The calm individual, on the other hand, becomes a closed system. Nothing gets in unless they allow it. When pressure rises, emotions are usually the first thing to surface. Someone disrespects you, challenges you, questions your authority, or attempts to provoke a reaction. Their goal is not truth or resolution. It is to pull you off center. If they succeed, they gain control without lifting a finger. The disciplined person recognizes this immediately and refuses to participate emotionally. They slow their breathing, relax their face, and lower their voice. This creates a psychological imbalance. The other person expects escalation, not silence and composure. That imbalance shifts power. Emotional control does not mean emotional suppression. Suppression is when emotions build internally and eventually explode. Control is awareness. You feel the emotion, acknowledge it, and decide not to act on it. This is a skill developed through repetition. Each time you choose restraint over reaction, you strengthen your authority over yourself. Over time, this restraint becomes automatic. People sense it. They feel it in the way you move, speak, and pause before responding. Silence is one of the most underused tools of emotional control. When someone attacks verbally, the instinct is to defend, explain, or counterattack. Silence denies them that exchange. It forces them to sit with their own words. Many people grow uncomfortable in silence and begin to over-explain, justify, or reveal insecurities. You gain information without giving anything away. Silence also communicates confidence. It says you are not threatened by the moment. Anger is the emotion most often mistaken for strength. In reality, anger clouds judgment and shortens vision. It narrows your focus to immediate gratification rather than strategic outcomes. A person driven by anger wants to win now, not win correctly. Emotional control allows you to zoom out. You stop asking, "How do I respond?" and start asking, "What is the best move?" That shift alone separates leaders from reactors. Fear is another emotion that erodes control. Fear of loss, rejection, embarrassment, or failure pushes people into poor decisions. They agree when they should decline. They speak when they should listen. They rush when they should wait. Emotional mastery means recognizing fear without obeying it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear command your behavior. When you move calmly in moments where others are visibly anxious, you immediately stand out as someone not easily shaken. Emotional control also protects your reputation. Once you are known as someone who reacts impulsively, people adjust their strategies around that knowledge. They provoke you intentionally. They bait you into arguments. They leverage your temper, but when you develop a reputation for composure, people hesitate. They become careful with their words. They second, guess their tactics. Your calm creates hesitation in others, and hesitation creates advantage. In negotiations, emotional control is decisive. The person who becomes emotionally invested first loses leverage. Attachment creates desperation, and desperation is visible. When you care too much about an outcome, It shows in your body language, tone, and pacing. The disciplined individual stays detached. They care about the result, but they are not controlled by it. That detachment allows them to walk away, delay decisions, or apply pressure without emotional leakage. Control over emotions also means control over ego. Ego demands validation, recognition, and winning every interaction. Ego pushes you to prove yourself, even when silence would serve you better. When ego is in charge, you argue with people who don't matter, correct people who aren't listening, and engage in battles that offer no strategic value. Emotional discipline quiets the ego. You stop trying to be right and start focusing on being effective. This control extends to positive emotions as well. Excitement, confidence, and enthusiasm can also reveal too much. When you show excessive excitement, you signal interest. Interest can be exploited. A steady emotional baseline keeps others guessing. They cannot tell when you are impressed, disappointed, or indifferent. That ambiguity protects your position. The strongest individuals are not emotionally flat. They are emotionally selective. They choose when and where to express emotion. In private, with trusted people, emotions can be processed fully. In public or high-stakes environments, emotions are managed with precision. This duality creates balance. You remain human without becoming vulnerable in the wrong moments. Emotional control is built through discomfort. You practice it when you want to react and don't, when you want to speak and choose silence. When you feel insulted and respond with calm, each small victory compounds. Over time, emotional control becomes part of your identity. You are no longer fighting your impulses, you are directing them. People who lack emotional control often believe they are being authentic. In reality, they are being predictable. Authenticity without discipline is exposure. Discipline without awareness is rigidity. True control sits between the two. You know what you feel and you decide what you show. When you control your emotions, you control your timing. You are not rushed into decisions. You are not cornered into reactions. You create space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies dominance. Others move impulsively while you move intentionally. Others react emotionally while you respond strategically. Others lose control trying to gain control over you. In moments of chaos, emotional control becomes unmistakable. When voices rise, your voice lowers. When others interrupt, you pause. When tension increases, you slow the pace. That contrast amplifies your authority. People naturally look to the calmest person in the room during uncertainty. Calm signals capability. Mastering emotional control is not about appearing cold or distant. It is about being unshakable. When nothing external can hijack your internal state, you become difficult to manipulate, difficult to intimidate, and difficult to defeat. Control yourself first, and the situation begins to bend around you. Speaking less is not about being passive or withdrawn. It is about being intentional. Most people believe influence comes from talking more, explaining better, or dominating conversations. In reality, the more you talk, the more you expose. Every word you speak reveals priorities, emotions, intentions, and weaknesses. The disciplined individual understands that conversation is an exchange of information, and dominance comes from taking more than you give. When you enter any interaction, the first instinct should be to observe. Observe tone, pace, body language, and word choice. People reveal far more through how they speak than what they say. Hesitation signals uncertainty. Overconfidence often masks insecurity. Rapid speech can indicate anxiety or a desire to control the narrative. By staying quiet, you create space to notice these details. While others are focused on being heard, you are focused on understanding. Silence makes people uncomfortable. Human beings are wired to fill gaps, especially social gaps. When you don't rush to respond, others often continue talking, adding details they never intended to share. They clarify their position without being asked. They justify their behavior. They contradict themselves. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their internal state back at them. You gain insight while remaining unreadable. Listening is not waiting to speak. It is gathering intelligence. When you truly listen, you hear motivations behind words. You notice what people emphasize and what they avoid. You learn what matters to them and what they are trying to protect. This information is leverage. The person who knows more always has the advantage. Talking less ensures you are not the one giving that advantage away. Most conflicts escalate because both sides are focused on expressing themselves rather than understanding the other. By listening calmly, you de-escalate tension without conceding power. You allow emotions to burn out on their own. When someone feels heard, they often lower their guard. Lowered guards lead to honesty. Honesty reveals truth, and truth allows strategic decisions. Speaking less also strengthens your words when you do speak. When someone talks constantly, their words blend into noise. When someone speaks selectively, their words carry weight. People lean in, they pay attention. They assume what you say is important because you don't say everything. This perception increases authority without effort. Questions are more powerful than statements. A well-placed question shifts control of the conversation while keeping you silent. It forces the other person to think, explain, and reveal. Instead of arguing, you guide. Instead of defending, you investigate. Questions can expose flawed logic, hidden motives, and emotional vulnerabilities without confrontation. The other person does the work for you. There is also strength in allowing others to underestimate you. When you speak less, people often assume you are less informed or less assertive. This assumption works in your favor. They become careless. They overplay their hand. They reveal plans prematurely. Underestimation is a strategic advantage when you are prepared. Listening also protects you from ego-driven mistakes. Ego pushes people to interrupt, correct, and compete for dominance in conversation. These behaviors create resistance and unnecessary conflict. When you listen instead, you bypass ego battles. You stay focused on outcomes rather than validation. This restraint signals maturity and confidence. In negotiations, silence is especially effective. After making an offer or stating a position, remaining silent forces the other side to respond. Many people feel compelled to fill the silence by negotiating against themselves, adding concessions or explanations that weaken their position. By staying quiet, you let pressure work in your favor. Observing reactions is just as important as hearing words. A pause before answering, a change in posture, or a shift in tone often reveals more than the answer itself. These micro signals indicate hesitation, excitement, discomfort, or deception. When you are talking, you miss them. When you are silent, you see everything. Speaking less also allows you to maintain emotional control. The more you talk, the more likely emotion will leak into your words. Tone rises, defensiveness appears, and intentions become visible. Silence keeps you grounded. It creates distance between feeling and action. This distance is where good decisions are made. People respect those who don't seek attention. Constant talking often signals insecurity or a need for approval. Calm listening signals self-assurance. You don't need to dominate the conversation to dominate the outcome. Your presence alone influences the dynamic. There are moments when speaking is necessary, but even then, brevity matters. Say what needs to be said, no more. Avoid over-explaining. Over-explaining suggests doubt. Clarity suggests confidence. When you state your position simply and stop, you leave no openings for unnecessary debate. Listening also allows you to adapt. When you gather enough information, you can adjust your strategy in real time. You respond to reality rather than assumptions. You anticipate objections before they are voiced. You see patterns forming before others are aware of them. Most people are so focused on being understood that they forget the power of understanding. The person who listens gains control of the narrative without appearing to. They guide conversations subtly, shaping outcomes while remaining calm and composed. When you speak less and observe more, you remove yourself from the emotional noise of the moment. You see the situation clearly. You act deliberately. Others feel heard but not in control. You know more, reveal less, and move with precision. Power is not about force, status, or intimidation. It is about leverage, and leverage comes from having options. The person with options is never trapped, never rushed, and never controlled. When you depend too heavily on a single outcome, person, or position, you give away power. Neediness is visible, and visible need invites pressure. The disciplined individual builds a life where no single point of failure can compromise their stability. Leverage begins internally. When you are comfortable with solitude, uncertainty, and delayed gratification, you become difficult to manipulate. People who fear being alone tolerate disrespect. People who fear loss accept bad deals. People who fear discomfort rush decisions. Inner leverage removes urgency. You stop moving from fear and start moving from choice. External leverage is created by alternatives. Multiple income streams, diversified skills, strong networks, and self-reliance all reduce dependency. When someone senses you have alternatives, their approach changes. They negotiate differently. They treat you with more respect. You don't have to announce your options. Your behavior communicates them. You are calm under pressure because pressure cannot corner you. Patience is the discipline that allows leverage to work. Without patience, options mean nothing. Impatience forces premature decisions and exposes desperation. The patient individual understands that timing is everything. They wait for clarity instead of forcing outcomes. They allow situations to reveal themselves fully before committing. This waiting is not passive, it is observant and intentional. Most people rush because they are emotionally invested in immediate resolution. They want relief from uncertainty. They want to feel in control. This urgency causes them to accept terms they later regret. Patience resists that impulse. It tolerates ambiguity. It accepts temporary discomfort for long-term advantage. When others rush, the patient person gains ground. Leverage also requires the ability to walk away. This is not a threat. It is a mindset. If you cannot walk away, you are negotiating from weakness. Walking away preserves dignity and power. It signals self-respect. Often, the mere possibility of your departure shifts the balance. Others begin to reconsider their stance, fearing the loss of what you bring. Boundaries are the visible edge of leverage. Without boundaries, options and patience lose meaning. Boundaries define what you accept and what you refuse. They are not emotional reactions. They are standards. Clear boundaries reduce confusion and manipulation. When enforced consistently, they train others how to engage with you. The mistake many people make is explaining their boundaries. Explanation invites debate. Debate invites erosion. A boundary stated calmly and upheld quietly is far more powerful. You don't need approval for your standards. You only need consistency. Each time you enforce a boundary without anger or apology, your authority strengthens. Patience supports boundaries by allowing consequences to unfold naturally. You don't chase compliance or demand change. You simply remove access when a boundary is violated. This restraint is unsettling to those who rely on emotional reactions to gain control. They expect confrontation, not quiet withdrawal. Leverage also exists in information. Knowing when to reveal and when to withhold creates strategic advantage. Impatient people reveal too much too soon. They show their cards in an attempt to accelerate outcomes. The patient individual releases information gradually, observing how others respond. This pacing keeps control firmly in their hands. Time itself is a form of leverage. Those who respect their time signal self-worth. They don't overcommit. They don't rush. They don't allow others to dictate urgency without cause. When you control your schedule and your energy, You control the tempo of interactions. Boundaries protect your time, energy, and focus. They prevent dilution of your efforts. Without boundaries, leverage leaks away through overextension and burnout. With boundaries, every action is deliberate. You invest where returns align with values. Patience is often mistaken for passivity. In reality, it is active restraint. It requires strength to wait when others demand action. It requires confidence to hold your position while others pressure you to move. This strength is rare, and rarity commands respect. People test boundaries to measure strength. They push, provoke, and negotiate. Each test is an opportunity to reinforce leverage. When you remain calm and consistent, tests decrease. Others learn that pressure does not work on you. Leverage is not about controlling people. It is about controlling access. Access to your time, skills, attention, and presence. When access is earned rather than given freely, its value increases. People protect what they value. The combination of leverage, patience, and boundaries creates quiet dominance. You don't need to argue. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to explain. Your behavior speaks clearly. You move at your pace on your terms within your standards. In high-stakes situations, this approach becomes decisive. While others scramble for immediate wins, you position for sustainable advantage. While others react emotionally, you respond strategically. While others compromise themselves for short-term relief, you preserve long-term strength. When you build leverage through options, practice patience under pressure, and enforce boundaries without emotion, you remove yourself from manipulation. You become steady in chaos and firm without aggression. People sense that you cannot be rushed, cornered, or worn down.